I made a mistake, and I pay for it, but the ball doesn't get stained. You know, those unforgettable words from Diego Maradona perfectly capture the incredible duality of a footballing legacy. As fans, we usually just see the pure, unstained magic out there on the pitch. But behind all that magic, there's a crucible of almost crushing pressure that we rarely talk about.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When you look past the glittering trophies and the billionaire empires, what is the true cost of football and godhood? What are the unseen tolls exacted on the mortals that we ask to literally play like gods? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're decoding the unseen forces that built the greatest players in the history of the beautiful game. We're going to dive deep into the tactical engineering, the psychological warfare, and the massive commercial ecosystems that forged historical legends. Let's jump straight into Chapter 1, The Crucible of Youth. It's wild to think about, but the foundation of global greatness is so frequently built on severe physical hardship. Look at this timeline. On one side, you have an 11-year-old Lionel Messi, diagnosed with growth hormone deficiency, his entire future reliant on daily injections. Now, contrast that with a raw 15-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo over at Sporting Lisbon, undergoing absolutely brutal, data-driven reprogramming just to fix a glaring 38% crossing accuracy. For Messi, the stakes were literally existential. Those hormone treatments cost a staggering $1,500 every single month. To put that in perspective, for a working-class family in Argentina, that number almost ended the career of a generation's greatest player before it even began. That is, until FC Barcelona famously signed him on a literal paper napkin to secure his medical future. So the big question becomes, how do you take a player who has just barely survived that kind of childhood adversity and translate that raw, desperate drive into absolute tactical dominance on the professional pitch? Which brings us to Chapter 2, Revolutionizing the Pitch. You see, these legends didn't just play it within the existing manuals, they completely rewrote them. Sporting Lisbon didn't just coddle a highly combustible teenage Cristiano Ronaldo. Instead, they engineered him using this incredibly rigid tactical framework. They broke his entire game down into specific metrics: technique, attitude, conditioning, teamwork, forcing him to defend, tracking his pressure suffocation rates, and basically molding him into an unyielding, structured weapon. But tactical evolution isn't just for youth players. After a totally devastating physical and psychological collapse at the 1998 World Cup, Ronaldo Nazário, the legendary R9, had to entirely rebuild his game. He couldn't just rely on chaotic speed anymore. So he mastered what we call the Apex framework: agility, positioning, execution, and X factor. He transformed into a highly calculated zone-dominant forward. And the data proves this transformation brilliantly. Before his injuries, R9 averaged 3.0 offsides per 90 minutes. But by the 2002 World Cup, that number plummeted to just 0.75. He literally stopped chasing the ball and started waiting, disguising his runs and dominating the highest value scoring corridors. It was a complete masterclass. But here is the stark reality. Tactics mean absolutely nothing if the mind crumbles under the weight of an entire country. Seriously, there is no training manual on earth that can prepare you for the hopes and traumas of millions of people resting squarely on your shoulders. Moving on to Chapter 3, The Weight of Nations. We really need to look at the immense sociological burdens placed on these historical icons. On one side of the screen, you've got Pelé in 1970, competing to restore national pride under the incredibly intense scrutiny of Brazil's military dictatorship. On the other side, Zinedine Zidane, navigating the highly complex landscape of post-colonial France, literally cast by politicians as a race ambassador symbolizing racial integration. These weren't just football matches, they were intense political pressure cookers. So what exactly happens when that immense, suffocating pressure becomes just too much for one human being to bear? What happens when the deity fractures? Let's explore that in Chapter 4, Angels and Devils. There is absolutely no better example of this internal duality than Diego Maradona in the 1986 World Cup quarterfinal against England. Think about this. Within a span of just 4 minutes, he delivered the ultimate half-angel, half-devil performance. First, you get the hand of God, an act of brazen, undeniable cheating. And then, literally 4 minutes later, a 60-meter solo run for the goal of the century. His entire complex legacy
perfectly defined in just 240 seconds.
We see this kind of duality again with Zidane in the 2006 World Cup final. In his final, most crucial match, he delivered that shocking headbutt. Yet the French public largely rationalized the tragedy. They separated the man's human flaws from his sacred status. It really proves that when an icon gives a nation enough joy, their transgressions are somehow just absorbed into their myth.
We've seen these self-inflicted controversies, but what happens when the destruction comes entirely from within? What happens when the body catastrophically breaks before the spirit does?
That takes us to Chapter 5, The Ultimate Comeback.
Look at this table. This is arguably the most statistically impossible medical resurrection in sports history. Ronaldo Nazario's knee trauma density was 4.7 times higher than the average elite striker. A normal player returns from these types of injuries with maybe 75 to 85% of their original output. R9's elite return index was 120%. He didn't just come back, he came back deadlier, completely overriding his body's natural trauma responses. It's just unbelievable.
These players conquer the pitch and they somehow overcome broken bodies, but their final evolution goes way beyond the grass. It moves straight into the boardrooms.
Here we are at Chapter 6, Billion-Dollar Empires.
Today, a football legend isn't just an athlete. They are a multinational marketing ecosystem. Cristiano Ronaldo is the engineered icon. His brand is built on sculpted excellence, luxury, and this high-energy global visibility. Lionel Messi, on the other hand, is the humble icon. His brand is positioned completely around pure, authentic, effortless genius. Two entirely different marketing stories, but both resulting in lifetime commercial earnings that exceed $1 billion.
And check out this chart, because this is fascinating. Despite Ronaldo's aggressive influencer strategy and his massive lead in social media followers, and Messi taking a much quieter, more selective approach, their market value is perfectly matched. In 2022, both players commanded an identical, staggering $55 million in annual brand income. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. We now live in an era of engineered icons, scientific data tracking, and billion-dollar corporate brands. Will we ever again see a legend forged purely in the crucible of the streets? Someone beautifully flawed, half angel, half devil. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep questioning the game.